The American military contemplated preparing for conflict against Japan and Germany during World War II. Germany was growing stronger, while Japan was looking for fresh lands. The United States contemplated creating an air force that could counter these fighters. But the fighting may cut off vital military resources like oil and metals, particularly aluminum, which would make it impossible to produce large quantities of weapons, including airplanes. American aviation engineers explored creating a fighter that prioritized non-strategic materials and was resource-friendly in order to solve this. Bell Aircraft, thinking they had a brilliant idea, created the mostly wood Bell XP-77. This resource-efficient fighter sought to deal with the impending protracted and expensive battle. Two major obstacles confronted the United States during World War II were the possibility of a shortage of light metal alloys needed for aircraft manufacturing, which may surpass the nation's production capability, and the possibility of the collapse of the war industry as a whole. The United States needed to increase its stockpiles and feed its allies. Thus, it could not afford to be limited in its manufacture of land, sea, and aviation vehicles. Wood was one easily accessible commodity that might be utilized if acquiring key resources proved to be difficult. Wood was widely accessible throughout the continental United States. At the beginning of World War II, the United States of America possessed 18 billion board feet of timber, enough to create 36 board feet annually. Due to the Japanese Mitsubishi A6M0 fighter's better performance, which swiftly outperformed American aircraft in the Pacific, the U.S. military faced a second threat. It was thought that in order to counter Japanese air superiority, the U.S. needed to develop a lighter, more agile fighter because its aircraft in the early years of the war were heavier and bulkier than the Zero. A 1941 proposal by Bell Aircraft for the U.S. Army focused on a small, wood-framed, single-seat, single-engine fighter, 2 months before to the United States entering the war. The proposal was filed. Bell thought the fighter might provide an agile design comparable with the Japanese Zero and resolve material sourcing concerns. XP-77, the Tri-4, was inexpensive to make and light enough to combat the Zero. Motivated by the diminutive and light competitors from the 1930s Thompson Trophy air races, Bell proposed that his new chief engineer, Bob Woods, construct a lightweight wooden aircraft to compete in the Cleveland National Air Races. Woods' drawing was unsuccessful, but it was the starting point for the aircraft that the U.S. military was supposed to use. In addition to having a non-traditional tricycle configuration with one wheeled nose leg under the engine compartment and two single-wheeled main legs under each wing, the Bell XP-77 aircraft also had a slim nose assembly housing the engine with a triangular cross-section fuselage. Little interior room was provided by the short fuselage, thus the cockpit was located well aft, allowing the pilot to see the main gear under the wings. With one vertical tail fin and low-set horizontal planes, the aircraft had a traditional tail unit, with a single 56-gallon gasoline engine and wooden ribbing on each wing. The XP-77 was created. The choice of engines was restricted by the narrow fuselage. With a 12-cylinder inverted Ranger V770 engine weighing less than 3,750 pounds, the XP-77 was almost 1,000 pounds lighter than an empty Zero. A basic propeller with two plates was powered by the engine. Ranger had stated that it would create a supercharged V770 that could have propelled the Interceptor to speeds of up to 410 miles per hour and 27,000 feet, but it was never completed. Limited defensive missions, such protecting Pacific sites from Japanese aircraft, were the XP-77's intended uses. There were two 50 caliber Browning M2 heavy machine guns and a single 20mm cannon aboard it. Given that each cannon could only hold 200 rounds of ammunition, the fuselage's limited storage capacity hindered its utility. Its limited fuel and weaponry made the XP-77 a doubtful battle machine, and the prospect of taking on the Zero appeared to elude it. The U.S. Army designated 25 of these little fighters as XP-77s when they were put into service on May 16, 1942. A change called for the pursuit of enemy submarines to involve the use of a 325-pound naval depth charge and a 300-pound bomb. Ranger had to give up on its promise to utilize the V-779 engine in favor of the V-776, which the Navy was already using, because the XP-77 was not robust enough to carry such a heavy payload. Beyond 12,000 feet, the V-776 engine's performance substantially declined, despite its 500 horsepower output. Multi-mission aircraft like the P-38, P-47, and P-51 that could be used for escorting, strafing, and bombing were needed by the Air Force. Though light, the XP-77 had no discernible advantage over existing fighters in terms of speed, climb, maneuverability, or weaponry. Its weak engine may be strengthened by lowering the gross weight to 3,000 pounds, but this would result in fewer ammunition and fuel for the cannons, increasing their vulnerability and decreasing their effectiveness. Project cancellation resulted from the government's unwillingness to fund an upgrade, even though 2 XP-77s had previously been constructed. Though the first flight wasn't until April 1944, due to supercharger delays, the Air Force had originally requested 25 aircraft for testing in 1942. Instability, extreme vibrations, a small, loud cockpit, and limited maneuverability were some of the difficulties the project encountered. Aside with the cockpit's arrangement obstructing their vision, pilots also observed the lengthy nose. Unable to fly even without weapons and armor plate, the XP-77 was also plagued by vibrations from its engine and wooden wings. The construction of the wooden aircraft was expedited, but testing was still ongoing when the second prototype was lost in an accident in December 1944. With its narrow fuselage, constrained fuel and ammunition capacity, and wooden construction, the U.S. military aircraft XP-77 encountered several difficulties during World War II. With a declining supply of 4.5 billion board feet by 1945, the United States almost ran out of lumber. Fighting the Japanese Zero, in particular, was not the right use for the XP-77's capabilities. The National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, is home to the last surviving example. Check out our playlist about other experimental airplanes from World War II. Thank you for watching.